Inside a factory, a box had stopped at the end of a conveyor belt, caught between the belt and the platform. A worker noticed it and reached down to grab it. In that moment, his hand got trapped between the moving belt and the platform. This incident highlights the importance of keeping hands and clothing away from pinch points on conveyor belts. Workers should use designated tools to remove stuck items, and all machines should have safety guards and emergency stop buttons that are regularly tested. Staying alert and following these procedures is what keeps routine tasks from becoming dangerous. A woman was near a car while another person moved to close the bonnet. As it came down, her hand was still in the way, and it became stuck when the bonnet shut. Fortunately, bystanders reacted quickly, reopening it and freeing her without delay. This incident reminds us to always check that no one's hands or tools are in the way before closing a car bonnet, trunk, or door. A simple pause and clear communication can prevent painful accidents during routine tasks. At a busy site, a truck was reversing toward a concrete platform to begin loading. A worker stood on the platform, guiding the driver with hand signals to help him back safely. But at that exact moment, an elderly man unknowingly walked between the truck and the concrete wall. As the vehicle continued to reverse, the man was caught in the narrow space before workers noticed and signaled for the truck to stop. This incident shows why loading areas must always remain clear of bystanders and non-essential personnel. Barriers and warning signs should be placed to prevent unauthorized entry. Drivers should rely on both spotters and mirrors, and work zones should have clear communication protocols. Keeping people out of restricted areas is one of the most effective ways to avoid dangerous encounters between trucks and pedestrians. Safety means ensuring that no one is in harm's way before any vehicle begins to move. A man and his wife entered a building and stood near the lobby, waiting for the elevator to arrive. Everything seemed normal, just another ordinary moment. But in an instant, the large outdoor glass door behind them came loose and began to fall toward the woman. The heavy panel started to tip, putting her directly in its path. Luckily, her husband reacted quickly, grabbing her away just in time and pulling her to safety before the door could cause serious harm. Other people nearby rushed to help, and the immediate danger was avoided. This incident shows why building doors, windows, and fixtures must be regularly inspected and maintained. Over time, hinges, frames, and fittings can wear out, especially on large and heavy glass doors. Property owners should schedule routine safety checks, and warning signs should be placed if repairs are needed. At a construction site, an excavator was working near a wall. The operator was carrying out routine tasks, and everything seemed under control. Nearby, a man stood watching the work. Believing he was at a safe distance, he stepped into the narrow gap between the excavator's body and the wall. At that moment, the machine began to swing. As the excavator's body rotated, it moved closer and closer to the wall, leaving no space for the man to escape. Within seconds, contact was made, and nearby workers rushed over in response. This incident shows why no one should ever enter the swing radius of an excavator. The operator's visibility is limited, and the machine's upper body can rotate quickly without warning. Safety zones must always be established, with clear barriers or markings to keep pedestrians and workers away from pinch points. Spotters and signalers should guide operators whenever people are working nearby. By respecting the swing area, staying clear of moving machinery, and using proper communication on site, construction teams can prevent dangerous encounters and ensure that heavy equipment is used safely. At a workshop, 3 workers stood near the side of a truck as its tire was being inflated. Everything appeared normal, and the job seemed to be going smoothly, but without warning, the tire suddenly burst. The force of the explosion sent debris outward, and all 3 workers nearby were struck by the impact. Workers should always use protective cages when inflating truck tires, stand clear of the danger zone, and never gather near a tire under pressure. Inside a steel coil factory, a crane was lifting a heavy coil for transport. Workers nearby continued with their duties, as this was a normal part of the job. But in an instant, the supporting wire gave way, and the massive coil slipped from its hold. It fell to the ground and made contact with a worker standing close by, turning a routine lift into a dangerous incident. This event shows why lifting operations demand strict precautions. Crane wires, hooks, and slings must be inspected before each use, and workers should never remain under or near suspended loads. Clear exclusion zones and communication between crane operators and ground crews are essential to protect everyone on the floor. At a construction site, An excavator was assisting a worker inside a trench. The worker stood in the machine's bucket while tasks were being carried out below ground level. As the excavator began to ascend with the worker, the bottom of the trench suddenly gave way. An unexpected soil collapse created an avalanche of earth, quickly burying the worker before others could react. This incident highlights why trench safety standards must always be followed. Workers should never ride inside an excavator bucket. It's not designed for transport. Trench walls need to be properly shored or shielded, and constant monitoring is required for soil stability. Emergency procedures should also be in place, so crews can respond quickly to collapses. On a busy road, a group of workers were assigned to clean out a manhole. Unfortunately, the site had no proper safety barriers, cones, or warning signs to alert approaching traffic. But suddenly, a car approached and drove directly over the open manhole, unaware that a worker was still inside. The vehicle made contact before stopping, and only after realizing what had happened did the driver reverse to clear the area. Although help arrived quickly, the incident had already taken place. This situation highlights the critical importance of setting up a safe work zone. Whenever manhole or road maintenance is performed, proper barriers, cones, reflective signs, and flaggers must be in place to divert vehicles and alert drivers well in advance. Workers inside confined spaces must also be monitored at all times, with a clear communication plan between the surface team and traffic control. Roadwork safety is not just about finishing the task. It's about ensuring every worker returns home safely. By following established traffic safety protocols, incidents like this can be avoided. At one construction site, work was progressing as usual. Bulldozers were moving soil, trucks were positioned for loading, and everything seemed like part of the normal daily routine. Nearby, a worker approached a transport truck to release the loading ramps, the same ramps designed for the bulldozer to climb onto the trailer. The worker began to untie the securing chain. Once the chain was free, he pulled it aside to let the heavy ramp lower. But as the ramp came down, it moved quickly and with tremendous weight. The worker had no time to step away, and the falling ramp swung into his space, making direct contact with him before he could react. This incident reminds us that equipment such as ramps, chains, and support locks hold back significant force. When they are released, gravity and weight take over instantly. Workers should never stand in the path of a moving ramp, gate, or door. The proper safety procedure is to use controlled lowering methods, ensure that ramps are supported before chains are released, and always stand clear of the movement zone. Clear communication with equipment operators is also essential, so that everyone nearby knows when ramps are about to be lowered. By respecting the stored energy in chains and ramps, workers can prevent accidents and keep construction sites running smoothly and safely.